particularidades que lo hace un poco diferente a la diáspora del sur de los Estados Unidos.
Yet, the African diaspora in Latin America is rarely mentioned or included in the dialogue.
Desgraciadamente debo decir que en África no conocemos la historia de los afro-latinos.
Te podría decir que el 80% de la población no sabe que hay gente de influencia africana en México.
I think there's widespread ignorance as to whether African Americans know about this history. No, I frequently give presentations on this, and I find that this is the first time that they've heard about it.
Over 12 million enslaved Africans were forcibly brought to Latin America, and an estimated 500,000 were brought to the United States over the span of 400 years. Why then is the African diaspora in Latin America not taught in educational institutions from elementary school to the university level?
Hay momentos en la historia peruana en que la historia como discurso se teje, pero ahí no están los afros.
Por ejemplo, en las escuelas, la mención de los africanos comienza desde que llegan como esclavizados. Y esto es bien importante que lo aclaremos. Digo esclavizados, no esclavos, porque ellos no eran esclavos. Ellos eran seres humanos libres que fueron esclavizados.
Aún no hay dentro de lo que es la enseñanza oficial un interés que nosotros necesitamos que sea desde arriba, ¿no? Desde las autoridades principales de nuestro país, para que se difunda, que los niños negros, que las niñas negras sepan su historia.
Many children and adults in Latin America do not know anything about Africa, buying into stereotypes, oftentimes unaware that it is a continent.
Todavía dentro de esa concepción de mundo, el niño no te piensa que África es un continente.
So I'm in the chat talking to Autumn real quick, and appreciate Autumn. I'm glad she gave me another chance. She goes, I'm just going to listen as a white woman from here on out. You guys, this is American history. I don't want white people to be quiet during this conversation, because this is the problem I feel we have, where white people feel like they can't contribute. And I don't like that. Like, this is our history, whether we like it or not. This is our history. But anyways, so what's interesting to me in that clip is I grew up in Miami, Florida, a melting pot, and there were a lot of Black Cubans, but they would say, I'm not a Moreno, or I'm not Black, I'm Cuban. And I know someone through someone that says they're not Black, but they're darker than me. And no shade, they have Black features. So K-Dot, as a biracial person, me and you struggle, I'm sure we get it on both sides. How do you feel when these people that are clearly even darker than us say they're not Black?
I love it when I talk to my Afro-Latinas and Latinos and they don't know their history and they hit me with the I know Black, Papi, I know Black. It's great. I love it because it gives me a chance to educate them, man. And it is important. Like the clip we were seeing, I grew up not knowing this history about how many slave Africans ended up in South America and Brazil in particular, and the Dominican Republic and everything, and all over the place, man. Colombia, you said, I'm sorry, you said Colombia? You said there were. No, you didn't say Colombia. I'm sorry, you didn't.
I said Cuba, where I came. Yeah, Cuba. And they're
just the African influence and the crossover between the two cultures. It just needs to be, more put into the education system. This is why we need these things. This history needs to be taught. Which again, I don't want to make this a political thing. But when we talk about who's teaching accurate history, we have this revisionist side with some Republicans wanting to whitewash and not talk about certain things, where these people come from. And that's doing a disservice to the entire world, because when you teach the history and you learn how much you have in common, it helps disabuse us of these made up social ideologies where we're all different in some ways rather than we're more similar in ways. So, yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they were taught as children. And I think I have that clip where they were taught not to be with Black people, not to like Blacks. You don't have good hair. You don't have good lips. Like it was like a brainwashing almost. Gray, what's your thoughts and your experience? Because I know you grew up in kind of not a melting pot, and coming to Florida, you said it was a culture shock.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town called Valdosta, Georgia. And then when I got to high school, I moved to Clearwater, Florida, where Kate I was just talking about. It was complete culture shock, multi-diverse, South Florida, like completely different. But what I'll say about the education system, I didn't learn probably to my late 20s or early 30s that Africa was actually a part of like selling slaves. I always thought that it was the Roots movie that Europeans came to the island and they went there and grabbed them and brought them on boats. I didn't know it was this 3 continent slave trade type of thing. But what I'll say about the Hispanic Afro-Latinas, I see RJ said that he's of Haitian descent. I used to hang out with some Dominicans every Friday. So if anybody know Dominicans, they party every Friday. And we were drinking, we would do a hookah one day, and I was just like, man, why does the Dominican Republic do Haiti so wrong? Like, y'all got all the vegetation, y'all got this. Why don't y'all help out Haiti? And they were offended. They was like, how dare you say that? All the stuff you get here as an African American, you don't know like the history of like the wars that happened between Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and people were essayed and all this stuff. So, I mean, I feel like people are more in tune with what's happened in present time or 20 years ago than something that happened 400 years ago. So it's hard for them to relate to the African heritage because they've never been
Yeah. And it's funny you talk about Haiti. I actually have a clip where it talks about how African Americans migrated to Haiti. Let's watch that and we can comment on it.
Merengue and breathtaking beaches. Yet how many people know that English is the native language of some Dominicans? In the Dominican Republic, there were 2 different migrations of blacks, West Indians and African Americans. After the Haitian Revolution in 1804, the Haitian government welcomed African Americans to come to the island to help rebuild their country. With the desire to escape a racist United States, African Americans from Philadelphia and other U.S. coastal cities migrated to Haiti and the Dominican Republic.
The Afro-Americans came from, they all left out from Philadelphia. Primer grupo fue de Haití, después a Santo Domingo, luego el grupo de Samaná, y otro grupo se fue para Puerto Plata.
In 1824, Haitian President Jean-Pierre Boyer financed a trip of North American blacks that wanted to live and work in Haiti. In all, 6,000 people reached the island of Hispaniola, and the African American culture brought to the Dominican Republic still remain in the area of Samaná.
Muchos de los juegos, los jóvenes están dejando de escallecer porque teníamos muchos juegos que usaban los afroamericanos y lo usábamos aquí cuando hacíamos bazar, cuando hacíamos.
So, after learning that, Gray, do you think that America should save Haiti? The fact that we technically could have Americans that were there. What's your thoughts? Does it change your view on Haiti in any way, or like, what do you think?
RJ, I have seen the movie Amistad. Can we save Haiti? Haitian people are proud people because they're the people that rebelled and were able to take the country back. I do feel like, similar to Hispanics, black people have racism towards other cultures too. I feel like a lot of African Americans, especially here in Florida, have racism towards Haitians. So, do I think that that would be able to happen? I don't think so, especially with what's going on now with this administration. I think it would be a hard sell because I mean, where were they at? Ohio, where they said they was eating cats and dogs.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think there's no chance for Haiti right now.
Yeah,
Other than
no chance.
Black being cool with Trump, maybe he can tell them something. I don't know.
I'm going there in March. Pray for me.
You going
I'm
to
sure
Haiti?
I'll be okay. Yeah, I'll be at a nice resort. I'm going on a cruise.
Nice. Okay.
So like my question is, like, K Dot, were you shocked to learn that, or did you always knew about? So basically, another thing I learned, K Dot, too, and I'll get your thoughts on it. A lot of Caribbean Africans built the Panama Canal. So a lot of them died literally building it. So now knowing that, do you feel we should have more of like a stake in the Panama Canal? Do you think that America should keep fighting for it? Or do you think the Caribbean should actually own that because their blood, sweat, and tears went into that?
Their blood, sweat, and tears went into that. America knew that when it was being built, they were going to use the indigenous people of the isle there and the coast there to build it, and they knew they were going to have difficulties building it, and safety regulations and deaths will occur. And shout out to my Haitian people, because of you guys is why a large chunk of America exists today with the Louisiana Purchase, because you guys revolted and kicked the French's ass and got your independence, and they had to sell, and they gave America its move to the west easier than it would have been fighting the war against France, because who knows what would have happened in the history. So when you said the earlier question too, should we be helping Haiti out? Absolutely, because they are a big part of that history. And no, the one thing I didn't know is the organization between Haiti and the people of Philadelphia migrating down to work, and that how those two cultures intertwined and influenced each other. But as far as the Panama Canal stuff, no, they deserve their independence. They worked for it, they earned it, and America shouldn't be trying to pry anything out of anyone's hands.
So this is the beautiful Kelly Corinne I told you about. Okay. She said, "Why do you guys say African and gray?" But I'm sure K-Dot, what do you call black people in this country? You call them black or African American?
I say black, African American. All the terms are interchangeable. I understand we're not Africans. I understand we're Americans, and we're descendants of that. But this is it's part of the culture, part of the history of this country that we do maybe need to revisit and kind of change up. But it's an interchangeable term. Black American. I know she said there are white European Americans. Yeah, they are technically, because they're not Native Americans. They're not the people of this land. So they are European Americans. But we don't say that because white privilege and them being this being the country that they instilled for themselves. They didn't have to deal with that. They put that label on us, and we took it, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I use those terms interchangeably.
Ray, what about you? Why do you use that term?
I like to answer it with another term. When you have Latinos for Trump, you have Latinos for Trump. When you have Muslims for Trump, you have Muslims for Trump. When you have blacks for Trump, you have blacks for Trump. When you have white European Americans,
why you gotta do that?
What do you call? But what do you call them? MAGA. And what does MAGA mean? Make America Great Again. I stole that from somebody on TikTok, but I wanted to use that term. Do you get what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I get where you're going with that. So to answer the question, Kelly also asked, were people paid? Yeah, they were paid for the work that they did, but I don't think they got paid like, when they lost their lives. No, like they just died, like literally, like they weren't paid for it. And a lot of things they weren't paid for. I mean, I don't know. The Panama Canal is one of those things where I know why Trump is fighting for it, but at the same time, should America really have a hand in that? I struggle with that because, again, the blood, sweat, and tears, like RJ said, of my people, Jamaicans, they died. You know what I mean? And also, look, Autumn said I'm Italian, German, French, Canadian, American. I struggle with that too, because a lot of white people they are proud. They say I'm Italian American, I'm German, I'm German American. I do hear them say that. Am I the only one that hears that? Tell me if I am.
I grew up in a place where we had the Italian festival, and that was Italian people celebrating their Italian pride, but they were all Americans. There weren't anybody from Italy there. They were all just descendants of Italian people who emigrated here, but no one gives them shit for it. Like, you can still go to an Italian festival in New York. You know what I mean? So it's just like when black people try to do it and they talk about the history, we're supposed to, some reason, have a victim mentality because we're still living in the past for not forgetting our history. But I don't, is it a victim mentality? Do people who fly the Confederate flag, do they have a victim mentality? Yeah, you have a victim mentality because you're flying the flag of a loser who was also, the first terrorist, domestic terrorist. So I would say they're the ones with the victim mentality, but let me digress.
I mean, I gotta agree with you because, like, I watched this podcast one day, and the person was like, "Oh, black people always bringing up slavery," and I'm like, because slavery still has impacts today. Whether you like, we have the damn 14th Amendment for it. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, so I agree with you. Anytime we bring up our history, it's a victim mentality. Why can't we just be proud of it, like you said? Gray, any thoughts before the next clip?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay. So we're going to talk about how the labor force came about and why Africa was essentially weakened.
Comba Noche Negra en Bogotá, Conciencia Negra, Futuro Negro, trabajé como negro.
History books refer to Africans only as slaves. There is no mention that some Africans in their territories were kings and queens or men and women of great wisdom, nor does it mention that African kingdoms themselves participated in the slave trade, trading slaves from other kingdoms with European settlers. This story cannot be told without starting in Africa. Contrary to popular belief, Europeans did not enter into the depths of Africa to kidnap people and turn them into slaves. African kingdoms dominated the territories, enslaving small groups of people from other kingdoms. Kingdoms such as Ashanti, Dahomey, Oyo, Benin, and Congo were some of the most powerful. When trade with Europeans began, it benefited the African royals, and the elites grew more powerful. From this trade, an estimated 100 million Africans were taken from Africa and dispersed among every continent.
Salió lo mejor de África. África empezó muy mal. Empezó con una sangría humana.
The colonizers knew exactly which humans were of value and had their pick of the finest Africans.
Entre un promedio de 15 a 45 años, ese fue como el rango de edad de las personas que vinieron. Por eso hoy se dice que África es el continente más pobre del mundo, pero es porque su fuerza de trabajo fue extraída. En la medida en que se les extrae su fuerza de trabajo, solamente queda la niñez y la tercera edad, es decir, los abuelos.
Los traficantes de esclavos no se aventuraban a elegir a un hombre flaco ni a una mujer enferma. Tenían que ser jóvenes y robustos. Por tanto, se extrajo de sus hogares a lo mejor del pueblo africano.
The population of
Dang, like that is so sick, y'all. They took the strongest. So basically, Africa was cooked. They took the strongest men, the strongest women, and they brought them here, most of which died on that journey, or they tortured them. Gray, what's your thoughts learning about the strongest being taken from Africa?
I saw an African podcast where he talked about that Africa didn't have a prison system as well, and that a lot of the slaves were actually prisoners. So these possible
Wow.
people that committed crimes, and me myself, I wonder. I mean, not this outrageous if that's why Black people are known for committing crimes because of our prisons from our slaves. So I'll say something probably unpopular, but I think Black people should be more proud of their history. We don't have a time
True.
machine. If we went back and we didn't take the slaves, that everything was going to go perfect. But because we have the African diaspora, we have such a diverse background of African people from the Caribbean to America to even in the Middle East, because we've been pushed out in so many places. So we have so much influence in all of these countries.
And we should just feel proud because we were the best of the best. Like, like they took the best of the best. K Dot, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I 100% agree with what Grace said. We do have a diverse background, and we need to be proud of that and everything that we've come from and everything that we are today. All of the hardships and stuff that we faced, even and all of the magic we've made out of it, and what the culture has become. There's not a thing on this planet that don't move and shake without our influence somehow, even after they've done the things that they did to us, selecting the strongest and purposely, breeding them like they did to make that. And, at some point, I've had this conversation before about how selective breeding came back to bite white people in the ass because now you can't play basketball professionally.
That's true.
Yeah, you know what? And then we dominate in other ways as well. We're far from, not being educated. We're far from, not being able to become lawyers and doctors and things of that nature. It's just once we get a chance, when we get the same shot and everything's equal and on the same playing field, we're just as good as anybody, and we excel. So, yeah, I just, again, to recap, I just agree with what Grace said.
Yes, RJ, I did hear about the conquest of Spain. We might talk about, well, we're going to get into that about my Moroccan history next week when we talk about the Nation of Islam. But okay, so the next clip that we're going to do, y'all, I want to talk about chattel slavery because some people think that it only affected the United States of America, but all of the Caribbean